At the height of the First Tiberium War, the UN-backed Global Defense Initiative was known for having developed new and advanced weapons with which to combat the Brotherhood of Nod, such as the Orca assault craft, Mammoth tank, and of course, the ion cannon. In the aftermath of the First War, GDI found itself not only the victors of the conflict, but as a new major power on the world stage. This newly acquired superpower status would allow the organization to have significantly increased funding. Some of this funding went into further scientific studying and understanding of the alien mineral known as Tiberium, but much of it went into further military research and development. Over the next 30 years, GDI would make great technological strides, such as the construction of the GDSS Philadelphia and other space-based vehicles and weapons, as well as mechanized walkers like the Titan Mark I and hovercrafts such as the Hover MLRS. Sometime before the start of the Second Tiberium War, GDI scientists had been researching and developing a new technology, which at the time was called harmonic resonance. It was being developed in Hammerfest, Norway, at one of GDI's primary scientific and military research bases. This technology was based off rare but powerful sonic crystals. I couldn't find any information on where exactly these kinds of crystals came from, but I think most likely they were once part of a collection of various gems that were used as resources by the Allies and Soviet Union during the Second World War. With both GDI and Nod using Tiberium as their primary resource, these rare gems could then be used for other technological applications. Through their experiments, the scientists were able to discover that these crystals, given enough power, could generate sonic energy waves. These waves could then be amplified and reflected using a large mirror and routed in a specific direction. The waves induced resonant vibrations which could shatter even the toughest of materials. During tests, this weapon proved to be highly effective against buildings, and it could even pass through multiple targets in a line, causing damage. GDI commanders were keen on using the weapon out on the battlefield and wanted a mobile version of it. GDI scientists and engineers quickly came up with a simple idea to mount the weapon on a heavy-treaded vehicle, which they officially named the Disruptor tank. By now, though, the Second Tiberium War was in full swing, and GDI High Command wanted the Disruptors sent out and deployed to the front lines to combat the Brotherhood. However, before they could be deployed, the Brotherhood launched a full-scale assault on the base at Hammerfest. Within hours, Nod forces had overwhelmed the defenders at the base. This came as a shock to GDI High Command, as they thought it was practically impenetrable, thanks to the Firestorm generator and barrier defensive system protecting it. Nod's reasons for assaulting and capturing the base were so that they could steal the sonic crystals to use for their own purposes. With the crystals in the hands of Nod, the Disruptors were useless. GDI would go on to recapture the base with the help of their best commander, Michael McNeil, but not before Nod forces would exfiltrate the area with the Disruptor crystals. However, GDI would retrieve the crystals by destroying the train that Nod was using to transport them. With the crystals back in the hands of GDI, they could finally deploy their new sonic vehicles to the battlefield. The Disruptor tanks saw action against the Brotherhood throughout the rest of the war. They also saw action during the Firestorm crisis against the rogue AI Cabal and its cyborg army. The tanks proved to be effective in combat, especially when it came to laying siege to enemy base structures. It also had the effect of being able to blow up blue Tiberium crystals, which could cause a chain reaction of explosions if it was a field of them. It did have its drawbacks though, such as its short range, slow movement speed, and slow rate of fire, but probably the biggest issue was its cost. The vehicle was very expensive, this being due to the rarity of the sonic crystals. If a Disruptor is destroyed, it's easy to replace the vehicle itself, but not the weapon system mounted on top of it. This also means that GDI commanders have to expend even more resources providing them with adequate protection on the battlefield, especially against air attacks. These issues, along with financial cuts, would culminate in the vehicle being phased out of military service shortly after the events of the Firestorm crisis. Though the Disruptor tanks themselves ended up not working out in the end, the technology of harmonic resonance itself could still be useful. In fact, GDI scientists would soon discover that the technology had far greater potential, not just as a weapon, but as a way of controlling the spread of Tiberium itself. In the aftermath of the Firestorm crisis, GDI switched its primary focus from military research and development to ecological preservation of the Earth and its natural environment. The Second Tiberium War only accelerated the rate of Tiberium infestation across the globe, making even more regions uninhabitable, and threatening to transform the Earth's atmosphere so that it would be 100% toxic to humans. GDI scientists looked to deciphering the Tacitus to see if they could glean any solutions, and a significant discovery was made: the resonant frequency of Tiberium itself. With this knowledge in hand, GDI scientists and engineers set to work combining this newfound knowledge with the research and data they had learned from their own experiments with harmonic resonance. This culminated in the rapid development of sonic-based weapons, vehicles, and structures that GDI immediately put to use for Tiberium abatement. For the first time in history, humanity had a way of directly countering the proliferation of Tiberium since its arrival on Earth back in 1995. With the development and distribution of this new technology, GDI formed a division dedicated to Tiberium abatement called Zone Operations Command, or ZOCOM. This division's primary mission was to perform both military and abatement operations in regions of high Tiberium concentration. One of ZOCOM's most famous success stories was the founding of New Eden, which was a region of Germany encompassing the cities of Munich, Stuttgart, Cologne, and Bern. The first region on Earth to be reclaimed from Tiberium, being transformed from a yellow zone to a blue zone. ZOCOM made use of a few key pieces of technology to accomplish this task. The first of these being the sonic emitter. The sonic emitter was a large, powerful stationary turret. It could be seen as the next evolution of the original weapon mounted on the Disruptor tank. The major difference being that the emitter uses a gun barrel to discharge its sonic energy wave, instead of needing the energy to be amplified and directed using a large dish. With the weapon's frequency calibrated to the frequency of Tiberium, the energy blast from the emitter is powerful enough to break down the crystals at a molecular level, making it extremely effective at clearing large swaths of Tiberium. ZOCOM probably made great use of these devices in the initial stages of the reclamation of Germany. The cannon can also be used against enemies as well. Similar to the Disruptor, the wave of energy shot from it can damage or destroy multiple units in a line. The emitters proved to be highly effective against the Skren during their invasion of Earth near the end of the Third Tiberium War, since the aliens themselves are intimately linked with the crystal. But just like the Disruptor before it, the weapon also has its own drawbacks. It is certainly powerful when it hits targets, but it does have a slow rate of fire, including the travel speed of the sonic wave itself, which can easily miss fast-moving vehicles such as Nod attack bikes. It's also expensive to build. There is also a mobile version of the sonic emitter, that being the Shatterer tank, whose initial role was the same as that of the emitter, only that the sonic gun was placed on a hover platform. This allowed the vehicle to safely float above the crystals and operate deep within Tiberium fields, allowing them to break up the crystals at the source being large ruptures or fissures of the mineral on the surface of the Earth. And just like the sonic emitter, the Shatterer could also be used in combat, though this capability wasn't utilized until the start of the Third Tiberium War, after the Brotherhood of Nods attacked on Washington, D.C. However, with Nod's devastating attack on Washington, D.C., GDI High Command ordered that the vehicle be redesigned as a combat vehicle. With the sonic emitter's bulk leaving little room for armor, the slow-moving Shatterer is something of a sitting duck. However, when deployed in unison with GDI's other, more flexible armored elements, the Shatterer is a force to be reckoned with. ZOCOM, of course, got their own specialized version of the vehicle, which they called the Zone Shatterer, and used it as their primary artillery platform during engagements with hostile forces. Though GDI may have been able to clear Tiberium fields with the sonic emitters and Shatterers, that doesn't mean the Tiberium is gone forever. Tiberium veins extend deep below the Earth's surface, allowing them to regrow almost anywhere. Sometimes new Tiberium fissures can spring up in the middle of blue zones. Example of this phenomenon can be seen in cities such as London and Munich. In this situation, GDI typically won't want to use sonic emitters to clear it out, as it could damage civilian infrastructure around it. And it may take some time for harvesters to arrive to clear up the newly formed field, and the fissure itself still remains there as a constant threat. In such situations, GDI makes use of special high-tech fences called sonic repulsor fields, a formation of rods that emit a continuous wave of sonic energy from one post to another, creating a barrier that connects them. These repulsor rods are usually seen set up surrounding a small Tiberium field, preventing further spread of the crystals outward from its initial fissure in the Earth. Of course, if one of the connecting rods is destroyed, then the barrier on that side of the chain will be brought down. Just like with the sonic emitters, the repulsor fields were also adopted for military purposes as well. They could be placed around important GDI structures such as command posts, barracks, or construction yards, in order to prevent them from being infiltrated by Nod saboteurs or screen assimilators. These barriers also prevent enemy commandos from setting demolition charges on the structure as well, and the barrier can absorb incoming fire, making the structure it surrounds take longer to be completely destroyed. Sonic technology was not limited to just structures and vehicles though. GDI scientists were able to develop downsized handheld versions of it, the most common of which are sonic grenades. The grenades can be carried by infantry units and are versatile in how they can be used. They can be thrown or shot out the barrel of a handheld grenade launcher such as those used by zone troopers. Zocom even attached these launchers onto Orca aircraft in their arsenal, replacing their standard armament of rockets. While not able to generate as powerful sonic blasts compared to the emitters or Shatterers, the grenades make up for that in that they can be brought to bear on hostile targets at a higher rate of fire and in greater volume. This makes them effective at taking out lightly armored units such as infantry, but are generally less effective against heavier armored ones. Of course, the most powerful sonic weapon in GDI's arsenal is the Mammoth Armed Reclamation Vehicle, or MARV. The vehicle's main weapon being a 3-barreled cannon that fires sonic shells, capable of leveling entire structures in one blast. However, each time the gun is fired, it needs time for the barrel to cool off and reload. After the first shot from the first barrel is fired, the second barrel, already loaded and cooled, makes a follow-up shot. The third barrel then fires right after the second, and by then the first barrel, reloaded and vented, is ready to fire again. This system allows the MARV to fire rounds back-to-back in relatively quick succession, given the vehicle's power and size. Though the main weapon could use the sonic shells it fires to help clear up Tiberium fields, this is usually unnecessary, since the MARV comes with its very own Tiberium processing system. The breakthrough science of harmonic resonance allowed GDI to make great strides in reducing the spread of Tiberium around the globe. Through the use of it, they were able to preserve and even reclaim parts of the Earth back to its natural environment. However, much of that progress was lost during the Third Tiberium War, with the detonation of liquid Tiberium below Nod's Temple Prime in Sarajevo, causing a massive explosion which showered much of Eastern Europe in Tiberium fallout, as well as the invasion of the Skrin, who targeted high-population urban centers such as London and Munich, destroying their sonic barriers, which were the only things containing the small Tiberium fields within them, thus effectively causing these blue zones to collapse and become yellow zones. While the ecological situation for Earth might seem dire going into the 2050s, all hope is not completely lost. Sonic technology saved the Earth from ecological collapse in the aftermath of the Firestorm crisis in the 2030s, and it is the only technology that GDI can rely on to do so again in the future.